Good evening and welcome back to Sports Talk ATL. I am Chase Earl, joined by Alex. Lord Alex, it is the worst day in all of sports. You have absolutely nothing going on, and now you have a full off day. You don't even get an all-star game or a home run derby. No, this is the worst day in sports, smack dab in the middle of the year, July 16th. Mark it on your calendar. It's hell for us sports fans. The all-star festivities wrapped up. Matt Olson doesn't make it out of the first round. And I got to say, Alex, this is my takeaway, and I know it's going to be a negative takeaway, right? It's going to be a negative takeaway. Even though they did fantastic, the Hank Aaron tribute, I think everyone that visited Truist Park was probably envious of what the Braves have going on in the Battery. It was spectacular. But I couldn't help but think, right? Matt Olson is sitting there with the 3 outs left, and Eddie Perez made him fly out 3 times. And this is just a microcosm of the Braves season, right? Like, we're watching it on All-Star Weekend. It's like he just chokes right in front of our very eyes with Eddie Perez, and people are blaming Perez. Buddy, Matt Olson's swinging. He can take the pitches. It's just a microcosm. And then on top of that, Kyle Schwarber goes out there and wins our All-Star MVP. Pete Alonso hits a home run. It just feels like everyone's dancing on our grave, even our own ballpark. And I just couldn't help getting those thoughts out of my head, despite Truist Park being a magnificent setting for the entire thing.
Yeah, that was my first takeaway was Truist Park. I mean, they must be so happy with the results of it. Obviously, the cash, but all the pictures, all the videos I saw, I'm out of town. Part of me wishes I was there. Obviously, the Uber situation, believe me, that would have been a nightmare. You might as well walk 10 miles away and then order an Uber. But that was my only takeaway. I know you're going to say the Matt Olson thing, and it is kind of funny. But what a insane weekend at Truist Park that must have been. I'm sure they made a bunch of money. But outside of that, maybe we should get some of that money back into the team a little bit. But that's either nor or near. But what a magical weekend.
Yeah, no, it was amazing. I mean, especially the Hank Aaron tribute. I thought that thing was amazing. I just thought it was funny. I just couldn't help but think, it's like, damn, Pete Alonso and Kyle Schwarber are dancing on our grave. Matt Olson's popping out when he needs a couple of homers to get to the next round. It just felt
we're blaming the pitcher. I didn't see that. People were blaming the pitcher.
Eddie Perez was getting nuked online. Well, if you remember a few years back, he was throwing some things to Ronald Acuna that weren't great.
Like sliders
in there. It is funny, it's always on the Braves coaching staff. It's never the players that are hitting. Alex, I wanted to ask you, though, you did something on the site. You can go check it out at Sports Talk ATL. What does a good second half, barring some miraculous comeback that I think has about a 2% chance of happening, what does a good second half of the season look like for the Atlanta Braves?
We're not talking playoffs, because everybody kept replying to that piece, playoffs. It's like, guys, it's not happening. You'll be a much happier person if you just start accepting that reality instead of clinging to the hope, and then maybe you'll be surprised either way. But I think you could make an argument for any facet that we're going to talk about. But I think the number one thing, I don't think this is an argument. It's health. We need everybody as healthy as humanly possible going into 2026. Sales coming back. I'm sure we're going to talk about that. Schwellenbach is expected to return. Joe Jimenez is probably going to return. But my question is why? Like, why are we going to push these guys? And I know they're competitors, but eventually you're going to have to stop a player from hurting themselves, because pitching injuries are a dime a dozen. I mean, these things happen at random. And you just saw Sale go down on one of the final games last year. The only thing that can hurt the Braves in 2026 right now is injuries. I mean, yeah, we could talk about some of these guys rebounding, some emergences, but at the end of the day, we need all of our guys healthy for 2026, because the selling, the wholesale changes is a bunch of baloney. We're going to compete in 2026. It's not even a question. The only way we get there is if we're healthy. Every single season, we have been going into it unhealthy. Now, obviously, you can't predict these kind of things, injuries, but with pitchers, I mean, why are we even throwing these guys back into the fire, especially a guy like Schwellenbach, who's like, you fractured your elbow? That feels like a ticking time bomb. Hang it up, kid.
Yeah, I'm really of the belief, and the Braves have just been snake bitten by injuries like I've never seen before. I don't know if there's something going on with the training staff where they're not treating or what they're teaching these kids and Gwinnett and at the lower level of the minors that could be causing some of the things. Maybe there is something that's actually happening. I'm of the firm belief that you just can't bubble wrap guys. I think even if you're down 15, 20 games, like if they're going to get injured, they're going to get injured at some point. Like if Schwellenbach's arm is a ticking time bomb, it's going to pop in the summer just as likely as it's going to pop the last month of the season. And I do think guys are competitors, and I think there's something about going out there and competing even when things are bad and doing it with your teammates that is commendable. I do think that. I understand what you're saying, though, and you're absolutely right. I mean, the health thing is just out of control in Atlanta. And it's just unfortunate. I've never seen anything like it. I have never seen anything like this team and the way they've been injured over the last 2 seasons. I don't think there's ever been a more injured team in MLB history. I said this last year, but it's just continued into this year. Like, we lost our top 4 starters for the season, essentially. Who that doesn't happen often, and you're coming off a year where the entire lineup got injured, and then Chris Sale gets injured at the end of the season, of course, and really screws your season. And on top of that, obviously Acuna has missed some time, other guys have missed some time. Like, I've never seen anything like this team. But aside from injuries, which I think we both can agree no one can control, whether they shut these guys down, let them pitch bullpens, whatever the hell they do. These guys just seem to find – I mean, Michael Soroka, looking back on it, was walking to the ballpark and towards Achilles. Like, this thing has just gotten insane. It really has. But aside from that, I think you've got to be looking at the resurgences from your star players, right? Like, I know people are talking about sending Michael Harris to Gwinnett, and there's a good reason that people are talking about that. But with things out of it, I think you just got to let him eat it and figure out if he's your guy. Same thing with Ozzie Albies. If you don't trade him, you got to figure out if he's your starting second baseman next year. If it's Nacho Alvarez, or you got to go out and get someone, whether it be via trade or free agency. So I think the resurgences from the second half, especially with those two, figuring out if they're part of the future of your team.
Yeah, I think you nailed it, and I wouldn't even leave it there. And I know he's hurt, so it this doesn't hold a lot of water. But Austin Riley too, and I hate grouping him with those two. Feels like it's an entirely different conversation where we're not quite sure if they can even play baseball. We are sure Austin Riley can play baseball, but like, we're expecting him, and I know it's probably annoying to keep hearing me say this stuff, but it's true. This guy is supposed to be the face of the franchise, MVP guy, and he has not performed like it. He's performed, barely above a league average hitter. And quite frankly, I think he would tell you that he is not satisfied with where he's at. He's supposed to be anywhere from 30 to 40% above league average as a hitter, and he's not even close to that. And I know he's hurt again, but when he comes back, inevitably, hopefully, you got to look for him. I know that Ozzie Albies and Mike Harris are worried about them in an entirely different breath, but this is not, this is a guy that is supposed to be a cornerstone of your franchise. Well, Ozzie Albies, you can get out of that contract. Mike, still plus hitter or a plus defender, yada, yada, yada. It was like Austin Riley. I'm like, it's been too long because it was all last year too. And while a lot of people think that he, came on strong at the end and then got hurt and that, took away from, what was going to be a good season. If that's not true, go look at the numbers. They were not outstanding. They were better, but they were not outstanding like we were used to from Austin Riley in, say, July, when he does become the best hitter in baseball for, 4-6 weeks. I'm concerned. I really am, because it's gone on for now. It's been, close to 2 full seasons.
Yeah, I guess concerned is fair with Austin Riley. My thing with Austin Riley is he's not going anywhere. So you're not really learning anything about your 2026 thing. I think Ozzie Albies and Michael Harris are in a way playing for their jobs, right? Like, I don't think you can go in just giving Michael. Now, I think it'll be a competition if he struggles the same way, but he has a chance to put a stamp and earn his job. And Ozzie Albies has a chance to say, hey, I want to be in Atlanta. Like, how bad do you guys want it? Play better, focus up in the second half of the season, because it's going to be the dog days likely where you're 20 games under 500, and it's easy to lose focus and really not give a crap. It'd be very, very easy. But those two in particular, like, they have no wiggle room with this franchise. I think
I'd say a lot of guys are playing for jobs.
Yeah. And then I think the last thing is the emergences. And that's just talking about prospects. We're talking about Nacho Alvarez, who's now in there for Austin Riley. Maybe he gets some reps at second base too when Riley comes back. You're going to see a number of new pitchers, Hayden Harris, John Carlos Lara, potentially out of the bullpen. I think you see both of those guys this season. And then starting pitchers, you could see a whole little wheel of guys because we don't have anybody. And I don't expect the Braves are going to be spending money at the trade deadline trying to acquire someone. So they're going to be sending out Blake Burkhalters. They're going to be sending out Ian Mejias. They're going to be sending out J.R. Ritchie, who just recently got promoted to Gwinnett. And you kind of look at that Gwinnett rotation and you see Fuentes, Mejia, you see J.R. Ritchie, you see Blake Burkhalter, you see they promoted, I can't remember his name, but he was a 7th-round pick just like a year or two ago. This is like his first year of professional ball. He's all the way up in AAA. They have a guy, like a full starting rotation of guys that are ready. I'm not saying ready, but ready enough to make their MLB debut. And we could see them all in the second half. So can two of those guys be like, hey, that could be a Hurston Waldrop as well. I mean, an entire rotation of guys there in Gwinnett that's ready to make their MLB debut. Can any of them put a stamp on a spot next year? Because there's a lot of questions with Lopez and Sale and Schwellenbach and A.J. Smith-Schaub are all injured right now.
I mean, the entire rotation, even when fully healthy, has got to concern some Braves fans. Every single one of them has issues or reasons to be, concerned. Chris Sale's injury history, Schwellenbach's, the durability is a question just because he hasn't done it. Grant Holmes, same exact thing. I'm nervous. I think you sell high on Grant Holmes and, pat yourself on the back that you did good work there. And I get that some people are like, oh, a cheap starter, yada, yada, yada. But then Spencer Strider. There are so many questions in 2026. If just one of these guys can emerge as the back end of the rotation kind of a guy, it'll go a long way.
Yeah, I actually agree. We got a lot more Braves talk coming up after the break. Welcome back into Sports Talk ATL. I am Chase Earl, joined by Alex. Lord, Alex, you don't know what's coming. I didn't tell you what segment this is going to be, but I want to ask you. I want to take a step. Let's dip our toes into fantasy land here, all right? What would it take over the next 2 weeks before the trade deadline? Like, what would the Braves have to do? Like, how much of the gap? Right now, they're 9.5 games in the wild card race. How much of the gap would they have to close over the next 2 weeks if you're Alex Anthopoulos, knowing Chris Sale, who is going to come back in middle of August, knowing Spencer Schwellenbach could return around September? How much of the gap would they have to close over the next 2 weeks for you to be like, you know what, selling off these spare parts, let's just see what happens?
Not that much. I don't want to, stroke his ego or anything, but Alex Anthopoulos probably doesn't have to see much over the next 2 weeks to decide not to sell. Within 5 games, no shot in hell. 7, I think then you're really having a conversation in terms of where you're at in the wild card standings. But 5 games, you can make up 4.5-ish games, 4 games over the next 2 weeks, which is easier said than done with these Atlanta Braves. I don't even think it's a question. Like, I don't think it's going to be much. I think he sees any amount of life. He's going to, revert back to what he knows. And that's being an aggressive GM. I mean, that's who he is at his core.
Yeah. My number was 6. So right there, I figure if you could make up 3.5 games over the next 2 weeks, I don't think they'd sell. Like, I don't know if that means they buy, but I think they would just be like, you know what, we get Chris Sale and Schwellenbach later. And I think a big part of it will be because the only way I see this happening, right, and we saw little glimpses over the last 5 games where they scored like 6 runs and damn near every game after they couldn't score. And I don't think that's sustainable. So let me be honest. Like, I do not expect this to happen. But again, we're in fantasy land, right? If that offensive burst we saw at the end was sustainable and they come out of the gates and they're hitting the ball, Marcell Ozuna is showing that power because he has 2 home runs over his last 5 games. That power stroke's coming back. Drake Baldwin and Sean Murphy keep playing like all-star catching tandem. Ronald Acuna's hot as hell. Matt Olson's hot as hell. Austin Riley starts to show flashes. Hell, even Michael Harris or Ozzie Albies, one of those two, starts doing something, and they make up some ground. There's no way they sell. Like, I think 6 games in that offense, even 7 games, if that offense is scoring 5, 6, 7 runs a game and looking anything like they have in the past, I don't think they sell. I really don't. Because
I think Braves fans would be surprised how big of a gap it would be in terms of the wild card. Like, what that threshold is, that it's a very low threshold. I really do think that. Like,
because they're not trying to sell anything big. That,
right.
Like, if you were selling Sean Murphy or you were having a fire sale or you doing something like that, but if all you're going to get is a 30th ranked prospect for Marcell Ozuna and a top 20 prospect for Raisel Iglesias and maybe another top 20 prospect for Pierce Johnson, like guys that'll probably never make the majors, let alone have an impact, then there's really no point. You might as well just play it out and see what happens and put your best foot forward. So if that's really, and that's what all the reports are saying. I mean, we know how from John Heyman, we have from Robert Murray, we have from Bob Nightingale, all 3 of them have confirmed they are not selling players past 2025. Like, I don't know if you include Ozzie Albies, who has a club option in that group, but the Sean Murphys, the big guys, like anybody that's worth a damn that's going to get you anything, they're not selling them, according to every MLB insider. So if that's the case,
well, they shouldn't. I'm flip flopping, and I'm sorry to do this. I'm going to go on a little tangent here. I don't think the Braves should trade Sean Murphy. I don't care if it's for a shortstop, quote unquote, of the future. This guy is a top 5 catcher in baseball. And you put in a lot of faith in a guy in Drake Baldwin who's played half a damn season. And I love Drake Baldwin. And I think his hit tool is here to stay. He's got the kind of approach that can go through lulls and be okay. And his defense is pretty damn good too. Why are we going to put all of our faith, all of our eggs in that basket? That is one of, and now I'm officially off of it. I was a little bit where, having two catchers, all-star catchers is a luxury. We can't really afford. We've got all these holes. I don't care. I'm completely off of it now. There's no way in hell I will ever say, ever, unless it's for an absolute proven guy. I see the Padres trade hypotheticals for that shortstop prospect. No. It's got to be a guy right now, today, that can step in the lineup and be an equivalent player. That's it. I'm officially, because he's a top 5 catcher in baseball.
Well, he's
both a top
are.
5 catcher.
They both are. And that's why you got to trade one of them. So, and no, I don't care.
No.
Listen, you're not going to keep
Ozuna's back. Ozuna's not coming back. It doesn't matter. One of them will be firmly in the DH role next year. I imagine it'll probably be Drake Baldwin. There's just no way.
I just don't see the Braves. I think you can pay less for a DH that's just as good as a hitter as Sean Murphy. A lot less, frankly. For a guy, I mean, frankly, Marcell Ozuna and Sean Murphy have been like
Baldwin is
players.
A good hitter, bar none. Doesn't even matter that he's a catcher. He would be a plus DH. Drake Baldwin would.
Plus, yes, but I'd rather have Kyle Schwarber. I would rather have Pete Alonso, who are both going to be free agents, by the way, this year. So, yeah, I mean, they're plus, but they're not nearly good enough to be DHs that you could pay. Like Drake Baldwin, if you lands you, I don't think it's something that you have to hurry to do at the trade deadline. But scared money don't make money, man. Like, and eventually you got to trust your gut on one.
Well,
of these
eventually
deals.
We're going to have to pay somebody, and I would rather allocate those dollars not to a DH. I'd rather allocate those dollars somewhere else.
But a DH is not going to be that expensive. That's my thing. I mean, you saw Pete
$20 million.
Yeah, $20 million in today's MLB ain't nothing.
I mean, you
ain't getting a shortstop
go to a starting pitcher. No, I'm not even saying. I'm talking about relievers.
What starting pitcher you getting? Frankie Montas?
It can go towards a starting pitcher.
I'm just saying, like the impact players that we're talking about, like a starting pitcher, a good one is even on a short term deal, you're talking about $30 million, and then you're talking about
so
a
you're
shortstop,
2/3 of the way there.
Dansby Swanson, $30 million a year for 6-7 years. Like that's what you got to commit.
It can go to those contracts. I mean, I'm not saying that you could use all that money, but I'm saying you've got some guy making minimum wage who can be a plus DH, and you can use all of that money you would give to Schwarber or whoever, $20 million per year to another contract.
I think my biggest thing is they're not going to be able to pay a shortstop. They've made that clear. They have tried. Unless something Alex Anthopoulos says, all right, I'm finally going to do it. And frankly, like most of the deals for these shortstops have been terrible. So it's a good thing that he didn't do it. I mean, maybe Dansby Swanson looks like the best out of all of them from that one class where it was Correa and Trey Turner and everybody like that. Willie Adames doesn't look like a great addition.
Maybe we need to pay a second baseman, and $20 million per year is plenty for a second baseman.
I hope you don't have to pay a second baseman $20 million per year. But that's why I think you have like the only way they're going to be able to trade for a controllable shortstop that they're willing to pay is through moving one of Murphy and Baldwin. It's a tough decision, but I just don't think you're making the most value having both of them on your roster. I'm not saying you rush into anything. You got plenty of time. Plenty of time. Both of these guys are under contract for a half decade. Plenty of time to make any deals. I just think with so many holes on the roster, hanging on to those two guys is a risky business because Sean Murphy's hot today, but we've seen him get cold. And Drake Baldwin's the hot new thing right now, but you've seen what happened with Michael Harris. So hang on to one of those too long, they don't have value tomorrow. So it really is just about trusting your gut. Does Alex Anthopoulos trust his gut anymore? We talked about that last week. Does he? I don't know. He's like the cold gambler. That's what we called him. That's his new nickname. He's the cold gambler up there calling the shots, and that's a scary proposition. More Brave stuff after the break. The MLB Draft was also over the weekend, and the Braves went away from their strategy for about as long as I can remember. It's been pitcher, get as many arms, and that's why we've had so many good pitchers. Unfortunately, a lot of them have dealt with injuries, but that's just the nature of pitchers. That's why you draft all of them. This year, they went away from that. They went with 3 shortstops. Now, drafting for need in the MLB Draft might be the stupidest things ever, but I don't really think that's what the Braves did. I think that's just how it is. They just knew they needed to get more position player depth. They probably scouted that, and they wanted to get athletes. I mean, you look at all these guys, the way that they talked about them, and they're guys that can play center field, left field, right field, second. If you can play shortstop, you can generally play anywhere on the diamond, especially if you're 18 years old and you've got a lot of room to develop. But the one that I really want to discuss, Alex Lodis, the second-round pick out of Florida State, who won basically the Heisman of college baseball, hit around 400 with 18 homers, plus defender there at shortstop. He's now the top position player prospect in the organization. Like he is. And he's a guy that obviously succeeded at the top levels of college baseball. So I'm very interested, especially in the second half of this season, when you have all these questions about the middle infield, where they're going to put him. Like, do they just throw him right into AA? I'm very intrigued by him and how they use him because he is a college guy. He's an older guy that's had so much success, and there's really nobody in the system. Like, he's going to be better than the guys that we have starting in the infield in AAA. Like, he is right now, today. Like, that's what he is. So it's like,
so where do you put him?
I don't know. Like that's why I'm intrigued. Like typically, you want to ease him into things, throw him into high A Rome, throw him into AA maybe, but he's actually better than everything that we have.
F that.
Yeah, what does it matter? Like, what does it matter if he goes in there and struggles a little bit in Gwinnett? I don't know. That doesn't matter.
I don't know what I think a lot of people read too much into the tea leaves because I did say see that moron Bill Shanks talk about what this draft means for the current crop of shortstop / middle infielders in the system. And you said it. I mean, when you grow up, the best kid plays shortstop. He usually bats third. And generally speaking, that kid can go and do literally whatever he wants. He's probably the quarterback. He dates the prettiest girls. That's just who he is. And so when you draft that guy, he's a mold. He's just a mold. And you mold him into whatever you think you need or he fits. And generally speaking, I think it works out better even if they don't play shortstop because it is such a demanding position. But I think that's a fun little experiment. Throw them in AAA. Screw it. See what happens. I don't think it's bad to go back. I mean, maybe a little bit, but like, is it bad? It can't be that bad.
Well, a lot of people like to talk about like he goes and struggles. You just screwed up his confidence. And my whole thing is like, this game's a game of failure, bud. You're going to fail at every single level. You're going to go through long slumps, even the best players, even guys that win Rookie of the Year. I mean, just look at what's happening to the current team. Like, you cannot make it in the major league level if you're affected by failure in baseball. Right. Like, you just can't. Like it's ridiculous. So while I do say like throwing a guy like Didier Fuentes out there, like for those extra starts, that was stupid because it wasn't going to help the team, and it's certainly not going to help him. But if he goes out there and sucks for the rest of his career, I'm not going to say, man, the Braves. He was never going to be good. Like
that, somebody will say that.
No. Of course.
Somebody will literally be like, that is the reason why he failed,
and it's not,
and they'll actually believe it.
Yeah, and it's not. I mean, you just if you get put down knowing that you're a 20-year-old and you made it to the majors, like that alone, you had a successful season. You made it to the major leagues.
Yeah, talk about being a mental midget. You're 20 years old. You have no idea. You can't even drink yet.
You started the year in Augusta.
Yeah, yeah.
You made it to the majors, and you're gonna pout because you got roughed up because we desperately needed you, and the Braves showed enough faith. So yeah, I'm interested to see about the Lodis guy. But overall, yeah, I think anybody looking at the Braves drafted shortstops, this means this for anything, man. The likelihood is they might get two good players out of this 20 round draft. Like you're just trying to find guys that make the most sense because you have the slot values and stuff. So they went under slot in some of the earlier rounds so they could pay a 4th round pick who they really liked. And that aspect's always weird and not taken into consideration because Salthazine, who was the high school shortstop they took in the 1st round, was viewed by Keith Law as the biggest reach, but he signed for $1.1 million under slot value. So when you go down the board, he was essentially the 39th pick in the draft. It's just a weird thing. So if you're reading too much into the tea leaves about an MLB draft, about guys you've never heard of, straight up.
That's also the best thing ever.
Like, let's relax. Like, I would be shocked if any of these 3 first-round picks ever play shortstop for the Braves. And that's not saying they can't be contributors for the Braves. It's just to say shortstop's really hard to play. And just because you played it in high school or college doesn't mean you're going to play it at the major league level. It's really that simple. We got a little more Braves coming up after the break. A couple of other notes that came out from over the weekend. J.R. Ritchie and Chris Sale. Chris Sale threw for the first time in 4 months right before the All-Star break. So it looks like he will return this season, providing there are no setbacks. I know that might upset some Braves fans, but like I said earlier, I just think you can't really write up these guys in bubble wrap. If they're going to get injured, they're going to get injured. And then J.R. Ritchie, in my opinion, the number one pitching prospect in the organization, has received a promotion to Gwinnett to really load up that rotation. I think, as I said earlier, we will see a lot of those guys in the majors this year.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's because we've been spoiled and it feels like every single one that comes up generally hits. I just have a weird, confidence that every single guy that comes up, now it's J.R. Ritchie, is going to contribute in some form or fashion. And especially with the stuff. And as far as Chris Sale, I guess I agree with you. As an emotional fan, yeah, you can wrap them in bubble wrap, in fact. But I get your sentiment that, you don't want to send that message. And especially for a company that is public, they do care about that ticket revenue. So they will absolutely not be doing that. But from an emotional standpoint, yeah, you definitely can. And, part of me still thinks it's a lost season. It doesn't matter. And we're going to have a couple of games before the trade deadline that are going to remind us that this is not a good baseball team.
Yeah, another aspect to the Sale thing, how many seasons does Chris Sale have left?
He's only got so much tread on those tires.
Well,
he's only got so many innings.
Here's a little point, and I'm not saying he's thinking about this, but, does he want to sit out, games where he's healthy and he can pitch? Because there's a lot of records. There's Hall of Fame at stake, and I think he's going to go to the Hall of Fame. But
yeah,
it's a fringe. It's a fringe right now. He's also currently sitting, I believe, around 2,500 strikeouts. So he's 500 strikeouts away from 3,000, which is obviously a huge number. Is he going to be willing to give up 8 starts at the end of his career where he could? So I think there's some of that. I'm not saying it's at the forefront, but I think it's going to be up to him. If he wants to pitch, you pretty much have to say, yeah, you're healthy. you're going to go out there and pitch. As far as J.R. Ritchie, yeah, he's the one I'm most confident in terms of can contribute right now. I thought we saw a glimpse of him at the Futures game where everyone was able to watch a 97-mile-per-hour fastball, which is up a tick from where it was. He had Tommy John surgery and he was sitting mid-90s. Now he's averaging around 96 with that fastball and touching 97. So obviously that's really good to see. And then just a legitimate 4 to 5 pitch mix with a really good curveball, changeup, developing sweeper and stuff like that. And I think he just has a good head on his shoulders, just kind of knows how to pitch. And he's only 22 years old. So in terms of guys that I believe that could contribute to this team as early as next season, I'd put my money on J.R. Ritchie. So it'll be interesting if we can see him. Hurston Waldrop's also pitched really well over his last 5 starts. So I would love to see him put it all together. I don't have nearly as much confidence in Waldrop given his command issues that he's shown and have only gotten worse this season. But those two, I guess maybe next, Blake Burkhalter too.
The good news is they're going to have plenty of chances. And even if they fail, they'll have more chances.
Yeah, and nobody's going to care. Not a lot of people will be watching either. Nope. No pressure out there typically where it's a packed Truist Park. I imagine it won't be the same in the second half of the season. We had a few big deals in the NFL, one of them being, two of them both being on the Jets, Sauce Gardner and Garrett Wilson. But one of those, Garrett Wilson, has a big impact on potentially the Falcons very, very soon and their contract extension negotiations with Drake London. Garrett Wilson got 4 years, $130 million. These wide receiver contracts, just like every contract in seemingly every league, is just getting completely and totally out of hand. And because this deal got done first, you got to think Drake London's looking at that number and saying, I need more than that. I mean, he has to. I mean, he deserves it. He's been better.
Bad timing. Really bad timing for the Falcons here, especially when you look at the landscape of what your season is going to potentially look like in the fact that Michael Penix is going to make Drake London a lot of money this year. It's that simple. He had a knack for him, or they had that connection in the last 3 games. I don't want to go through all the stats, but you can go look them up. I mean, Drake London was on a record-setting pace. Obviously, can he do that for a full season? We don't know, but the connection was obvious. That is not going to play well at the negotiating table when he goes up and puts up 1,500 yards and 10 touchdowns, and everybody looks around and goes, we might have one of the best receivers in football. Now, obviously, some Falcons fans are saying, why didn't we pay him sooner? And you have a point. I think, generally speaking, you'd rather pay a guy a little bit too early than too late. I mean, just look at the Cowboys in that mess, the Bengals in that mess. Generally speaking, Chris Lindstrom's deal looks pretty sweet right now. AJ Terrell's deal looks pretty sweet right now. I just don't think that he would even look at. I would if I was Drake London's agent, I would say, "Thank you guys. We'll see you next offseason."
Yeah, I know. Just the injury thing in the NFL is so ridiculous that it's like you almost.
Drake London is one of the most durable guys. I mean, that guy is built.
Everyone's the most durable guy until the knee pops.
Jake Matthews.
Yeah, well, year 12 could be the. No, I'm just kidding. Listen, Drake London to me, he was a top 10 receiver in football, especially with Michael Penix this past season. He's better than Garrett Wilson. I don't care what any Jets fan or any guy that doesn't watch Falcons football wants to tell you. He's a better receiver than Garrett Wilson, and he's going to get paid like it. And he's one of those players that just like when Chris Lindstrom's deal came up and just like AJ Terrell's deal, it's like, whatever. Go ahead and give him the money.
Well,
and don't worry about it. And don't worry about it.
I was the first person to tell you that they overpaid Chris Lindstrom, and now he was not the best guard in football when he got paid. And especially now that Zach Martin is out of it, he is absolutely 1 or 2. I think if you
and those deals always just look better. Like right now, 130 million, 140 million, whatever he'll demand. I would try to get it done now and be like, hey, you want 130?
Well, that's what I was saying. I'm sure they did.
Top that Garrett Wilson deal by 1 million and call it a day. Because some bum. I mean, DK Metcalf just got $35 million, and unless you're into Instagram pictures, DK Metcalf can't hold Drake London's jockstrap. So I am totally fine. Like Drake London to me, if you're ranking best players on the Falcons right now, where does Drake London rank? Third at worst? Maybe second?
He's top five easily.
Like it's Chris Lindstrom to me. And then you're having an argument right there with Drake London and Bijan Robinson.
Well, I would say Jesse Bates is probably better than both of them.
I don't know. Maybe. He's definitely not more valuable. He's definitely not more valuable.
Well, you want to talk about value, then Drake London's probably the most valuable player. And we'll see with Michael Penix because running backs, who gives a damn? Guards, are you joking? And then you're right. Safeties are,
So to me, it's just cut him the check, whatever the hell he wants. And
I don't think any Falcons fan would even.
He's also exactly what you want. I mean, this guy is out there in the run game blocking like he is a tight end. He gives more effort blocking than Kyle Pitts. And
just imagine how grateful he's got. This guy is working this hard. He cares this much. He's not a diva. He's not your quintessential wide receiver diva who's hates losing, can't stand not getting the ball, yada yada yada. You don't hear any of that ever with Drake London, and we still suck. Just imagine when we start actually winning games. How happy, and that's only going to get.
I don't even know if I can imagine that anymore.
You know what I'm saying?
It's like, I don't even know what that feels like.
Only experienced failure in his entire NFL life. And
I completely
in terms
agree.
of team.
I mean, in terms of he's on the exact opposite end of the spectrum of Kyle Pitts. Like it's just like the guy that you want to pay. Like just like Chris Lindstrom was a guy that you wanted to pay. I was like, you know what? That deal looks a little rich for the third best guard or whatever he was at the time. But that guy was that's exactly those are the kind of guys you want in the locker room. Like Jake Matthews has never been the
lunch pail guys.
Yeah, like Jake Matthews is a guy that's out there every day. I've been totally fine paying him whatever the hell he wants because he's out there every game and he's not the best tackle in the league, but he's one of the better tackles in the league and he doesn't miss a game.
He is literally the exact opposite of Kyle Pitts, where like red flag, and then Drake London's like. Green flag. Guy that you bring home to your parents. Like that's the kind of football player he is.
Like, I mean, we're blessed in Atlanta to have him right after the whole Calvin Ridley fiasco. They nailed that pick. That is one because there were a lot of wide receivers there that they could have taken.
Garrett Wilson is the same exact draft
class. Chris Olave.
And I still think those two guys are studs. I don't want to get into saying who's better. Drake London is better, but everybody ridiculed that pick at the time. Including yours truly. We got to that pick and I said, I think I made a tweet or something. I think I said, I'll, do something crazy if we draft Drake London. There's 0% chance draft Drake London. It's a pretty damn good pick in hindsight.
Yeah, no, I mean, there is absolutely, you can say of all the picks that they've made, that's the one where we have no questions about. Like that's the one in every round where it's like, that was the great pick. That was a great pick. We got one more segment coming up after the break. According to Adam Schefter, the Atlanta Falcons are going to be wearing their throwback red helmets at home 3 times this season, twice on Monday Night Football against the Rams and Bills, and also against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Alex, just make them the full-time unis at this point. What are we doing? Can we not just acknowledge that the current Falcons uniforms suck? I mean, what the hell are they? They're some of the worst in the NFL. I can't believe someone got paid to make those, but listen, why do people have such a problem, Alex? Just admitting they made a mistake. Hey, you know what? These aren't that good. But we got these sexy little things in the back. Let's just wear them every game.
I don't know. I mean, they have a real potential for some excellent uniform matchups, depending on what the Bills, Rams, and Bucks. Good Lord Almighty. If the Bucks wear their creamsicles, obviously they'll probably wear them at home and because, we're doing it at home and that's generally what everybody does. But if the Bills wear their throwbacks or the Bucks wear their creamsicles, it has the potential of being an all-time uniform
week one's
matchup.
At home?
Week 1 is at home.
So we're wearing them on the road, week 15. Against the Bucs.
Oh, so there you go. So that might set up then. That might set up perfectly then.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think that's what would be happening.
We open the season with the Bucs at home.
Yeah, at home. Yeah, I believe that's true. So I think with week
that's 15 weird.
Could be a sexy little uniform matchup. Listen, just make them full-time uniforms. Just make them full. I am so, the new uniforms that they unveiled,
Awful.
the gradient
At
ones.
least we don't wear the gradient anymore.
I mean, they
those
ditched
were
those
some of
after
the
1
worst things I've ever seen.
Well, if you can admit those suck, why can't we just admit they all suck and then just move on and go? That wraps up our show. Thank you guys so much for joining us. We'll be back with you tomorrow.